Good evening. I'm John Arnold. Welcome to Protect and Serve. Thank you for joining in. Listen, I hope you had a wonderful day. The weather's getting a little cooler and people are out. It was a beautiful day. And listen, on tonight, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to continue our talk about the restructuring of police departments throughout the nation. Last week's show, we talked about defunding the police and what defunding was, what we envision it would be, what we should have it to be. And tonight we're going to talk about police reform. Now, there's a difference because right now when you hear defunding, when you hear police reform, criminal justice reform, everything is moving right now. Everything across the nation is moving in a direction which is positive for the community, but we have to continue the push. And what I'm seeing now throughout states throughout the nation is that some of the states are for it, some are against it. So I'm telling you, this is a perfect opportunity for you, the community, to get engaged, to get active so that we can push this thing forward in order to make it a safer community for all of us. Do we need police reform? Yes, we do. We know that is true. We do need police reform. Do we need criminal justice reform? Yes, we do. Can we do both at the same time? Yes, we can. And we should. We should be pushing for both of them. They both go hand in hand. But on Protect and Serve, what we're trying to do is get you the information so that you can make more informed decisions in your local jurisdiction, because your local mayors, your governors, your state senators, your federal U.S. senators all need to hear your point of view. So the information we going to discuss tonight, we want you to join in the comment section, make your comments, ask questions. We want to answer them for you. We want you to feel that you have enough information when you go to your council meetings or you go before different boards and you talk about police reform, that you will be armed with information. Tonight, we're going to talk about some local police reform bills that are being proposed. And we're also going to talk about the federal police reform bill under HR 7102, I believe is the George Floyd Policing Justice and Policing Act. That's a very important bill for you, the community members, to know about, to read about, because there's a lot that is proposed in that bill that will help you set up who you are going to be moving forward. Okay. So I want to bring into my expert commentators. You know who they are. They're my guests every week. I'm talking about retired Detective Stephanie Treadwell and retired Detective Anthony Cox. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing?
We're doing good. All right.
Good. I want to go into this police reform because last week we spoke about defunding the police, and that's a part of police reform. When we say defunding, just for the audience, if you weren't on here last week, it was about reallocating money to different organizations and groups within the community that do function, that can take over functions that police are doing now that maybe they shouldn't be involved in. Okay. So on today, we had something very important happened in Texas with Governor Abbott. Okay. Now, as we said, some people want police reform. Some people don't. A lot of people are rejecting it, are fighting against it. A lot of cops are. But let me just say this to the community. Listen, good cops are not worried about police reform. We welcome police reform. Why? Because we want to serve you the best way we can. If you are talking about police reform and you have officers that are against it, what do they have to hide? Mm-hmm. Because good police reform, when we had the police decree, the consent decree in Newark, one of the things I spoke to Director Venable about, and we both agreed, we said, listen, we welcome it. We welcome, we have experts come in and they point out what was wrong with the police department. And we were like, okay, so what's your recommendations? And we had some of the top minds that came in and were telling us where we were wrong. It was previous to us prior to us coming to that department. I mean, Stephanie, you were there. But there was things that were wrong and were going to be corrected. And guess what? We welcomed it. And good cops good cops who love doing the job of protecting and serving the community, we are not afraid of police reform. We are not afraid of giving up some of the things that we do. We are not afraid of sharing and being transparent. Only people that have a problem with being transparent are people who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing or have something to hide. And we want to just to put that out there because the majority of cops are good cops and they are not afraid of police reform. So let's talk about it. Police reform, we have it on the federal level. We have it on the local level. We have it, on the state level. We have a lot of police reform discussion going on. And for our guests, I want each of us to like weigh in on what your thoughts are about police reform, what your vision is.
My vision, first of all, need to bring the police up to the 21st century. Because we way back with that. Still, some people think they still part of the slave patrol.
Right.
And that is just so wrong. Replace the police. How can you do that? What about lawlessness and violence? Who's going to handle that? But no, we don't want to be beat down. All this. If this don't change now, like I always say, this is still a movement as opposed to a moment. And if nobody's feeling what they're seeing, we're in the 21st century with all the media, with all the phones, with all the recordings and everything. So if we can use all of that in order to change the way policing is done or the bad things that's done through the department, then why not just bring the whole thing up to the 21st century? And I think reform is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, like you said, change is always good. We have to change it because it's not getting any, better. A lot of people are, in the urban areas are desensitized to the crime that's going on around them. You don't want that. Everyone wants to come out, be free on their own areas, walk around, have their, family members walk, talk, do what they want. Shouldn't have to go out and look up and down the street to see who's fighting, who's shooting, or what's going on, and not be able to call the police and know that they're going to handle that in a good way, not just coming in like, the Wild Wild West and tear everything up and just shoot up the place. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have to call them on a certain, call if you're having issues in your home that you have to worry about. If you call them, or your family members going to be safe once they leave. Right. So it's a lot of issues we have to, deal with as far as the police officers, the good police officers. They're not afraid of it. Right. They're not worried about it. They welcome it. Come on, help us out, give us some extra help with the community, with different little things that we need help with in order to make their jobs better. The other side, they're afraid of it because they know what change means. Yeah. Once they change, once, they reform certain things, I can't go do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I might as well put in my papers, let me go now, let me get out now.
Yeah, you're right, Tony. Listen, I got to say this to our audience who's watching, because this is one thing they don't know about police officers, but police officers are some of the biggest babies and gossipers, because once you hear one thing will be coming down the pike, but by the time it gets to like the officer who came in on a night shift, oh my God, it's like completely opposite of what was actually said. Right? Am I lying?
Exactly. That's right.
They are so afraid of change, because they're very, and this is the reason, they're very regimented. Police officers are very regimented. And when we have change, because of the nature of our job, we're always suspicious. Well, why is it? What are they doing? So the rumor mill in the police department is crazy. It's crazy. It is bad. So we just wanted to let the viewers know. But one thing, Obalaji Baraka said something on here. He said, and we agree. He said we have to be clear about this, that nobody is against the police. We are against police brutality. That is exactly right. We, as a community of Black people, we want police. We need police. We want community policing. We just don't want the police coming in there and beating up and killing our children, disrespecting our seniors, disrespecting us. And we have had too many instances across the nation where innocent people have gotten killed for minor crimes. And that's the reason why the masses are yelling for police reform. And cops who work the job, we're happy that you're yelling for police reform, because the things that we see and we're against, we're by ourselves. So we're happy that you're saying for police reform. And we talk about police reform, we want criminal justice reform. Criminal justice reform, because that's another area where there are lots of problems. How, if black people are only 13% of the population of the United States, how come we have a 40% or higher incarceration rate?
Out of 2 million. 40%.
Yeah. I mean, I know we have issues in our community, and I know we have that, but what is the solution? As law enforcement executives, we are doing the mayors of our city a disservice if all we can go back to them and tell them is we have to come out with fighting strategies that's going to lock more people up. That's not what we do. That's not what we should be doing. As Stephanie said, that's the mentality of the original formation of police departments based upon the slave patrol. And that's what they were there specifically do, to lock people up. But now with defunding and reform, we're talking about programs where there should be crime prevention, where we should be allocating to keep people out of jail. You know, and most of your progressive mayors, that's what they're pushing. They're pushing programs where, you know, we got to get these folks back to work, because let me say this. We all have ups and downs, and, you know, we're okay now, but let's say you lose everything. Where would your next meal come from? All right. So, you know, I learned not to look down on people. I've helped a lot of people through the church and through the ministry, and I've heard their stories, how where they were on top one day and next day a tragedy happened, and you know, they resorted to doing things that you know is right. Yeah, I mean, all right. So they went to drug use. Why? To escape the pain of the problems that they're doing, and they're getting locked up for personal drug use. I mean, not just getting locked up, but getting locked up for long and extended periods of time. This is what we're talking about, what the community is talking about, and this is what police reform and criminal justice reform has to be about. It has to correct and change that narrative so that young people who have minor crimes don't carry a life sentence and worse, lose their life. That's just, you know, that's just how it has to be when we move forward. That's just how it has to be. I just want to know if our listening community, and if you and Steph have had a chance to even look at the HR 7120 bill, which is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It is a very important bill. It's a very important bill. Let me say this again, ladies and gentlemen, this bill is very important, and you have to push to make this bill go through on the federal level, because it will change so many things that state lawmakers are trying to keep in place. Perfect example today in the state of Texas, the governor signed legislation. They're going to sign legislation to any city within the state of Texas that is trying to move police reform and police defunding forward. They're going to sign legislation to freeze their taxes so that they can't increase their taxes. And you know that sometimes you have to have increase in taxes in order, because things go up, cost of living go up. And of course, you know, you have bills. And that's how they're going to fight this, because they are so upset at Austin, Texas, for defunding their police department and reallocating money to community organizations to try to make Austin a model city where police and community come together. Well, what's your thoughts on that?
It's gonna start a whole nother thing. It's just gonna start a whole nother big old protest. It's gonna, I don't even know why you even told me that.
See, a lot of them throw stuff in like that, you know, to start other issues outside of that, to keep, you know, the smoking gun thing, you know. Oh, let's start this, put this injunction in, or start something else to keep them away from the real agenda.
Right.
So I mean, it's going to start a lot of issues. You're going to see exactly who's who.
Right.
Those that walk on one side of the law, the other side, and who's who walks the double line. So it's going to start a lot. You're going to be able to tell who's who when this comes down to it.
That's right. And Kimberly Akbar, she said something key. She said communication is key. We should be able to use preventative measures in order to implement changes by showing the continuity of care and respectfully listening to our communities. Absolutely right. This is what police reform is about. This is what this bill is about. But there are people who are opposing this bill. This bill is now in the House of Representatives. HR is the House of Representatives. It has not moved forward. It's passed in the House of Representatives, but there are senators who do not want to see this bill go forward. Why? Because the police unions are very strong, and we know to deal with that. But the fact of the matter is that this is why local elections is important. Local elections and the voting process is important because we have to become the change we desire. And we have to put people in there who will push our agenda because they're surely pushing their agenda. And in a time right now with Breonna Taylor, with George Floyd, with Tamir Rice and so many others who have been killed mercilessly at the hands of the police, and change needs to be, come about. It needs to come about. There are still people who want to resist. There are still people that are still fighting against the worth and debating the worth of Black lives as opposed to everybody else's lives. And that's not right.
You're going to always have that, those that want to resist no matter what, buck the system.
Exactly.
They need to find another job then.
Say again, Steph.
They need to find another job. If you can't do it, go somewhere else. And
this one was too easy for them. That's why they don't want to give it up. They're used to doing what they're doing. That's their fun time. So they come in, reform comes in, they have to change. Oh, why this, why that, and put up other protests. They want to, then you never know what other agenda they have or other organizations they do belong to while they're doing what they're doing. Right. It's showing, they're showing other organizations or patches they may have on uniforms I've seen on the internet, that actually mean some other type of white supremacy or some other type of organizations. But now you're starting to see all along what this mean to them. It's a game. They come on for fun and game. They have no, agenda to help people.
Right. Right.
Why would you want to come? You're scared to go during something that, a real major incident. And I'm sure you all have seen them in a department you've been in. A hot call comes in. You always have that one that sits back. Like, oh, let me let everybody else run in first. Yeah. Then everything's over. They want to come in and jump in there, try to take over. No. Where were you at when this was going on?
Right.
We're looking for somebody, or, you have a hot call. You see them afterwards. Never write reports. Never, helping out with any type of investigation. But they always got something to say.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. And that's one of the things that, police officers who are from the community, that's one of the things with this bill is that they're calling for more police officers from the community. Listen, viewers, we want cops from the community who know the community, who know the lay of the land. That's why I came in, I joined. I didn't go anywhere else. I wanted to work within the county. I would have worked for the city of Newark, but one, my dad was there and I didn't want to work with him. Because you know how that is. And then two, they were taking so long because they just didn't have the funding. So I went to the county. But working in the county, I had the ability to work throughout the entire state as well as the county and serve the people of the county, which for me was a greater experience because I got to work in a lot of different cities and municipalities and bring change or do my part in bringing change in reducing crime in the neighborhood. And I'm not bragging, I'm not saying anything, but like yourselves, we didn't have problems. We didn't have issues of misconduct and criminal accusations made against us. We went through our whole career and we retired from our whole career with stellar awards. I mean, stellar awards. I still have commendations and awards and everything, but it was just part of what I did. It was part of my job, So and there are a lot of police officers who feel like that. and we did the job. They did the job with us. We didn't worry about overtime. Man, we just wanted to, make a difference, man. If there was a problem in the neighborhood and Miss Jones who would call us up crying, say, I can't go and walk to the corner store because these boys are out here doing this and doing that. Yeah, we went in, we addressed it. And all of it was not addressed with an arrest. Sometimes it was just a good talking to. We knew the people, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we could walk the streets and talk to the people and say, listen, this ain't right. Stop it. If you don't stop it, you know what's going to happen. And guess what? We cleaned it up. That's all they wanted. That's all the neighborhood wanted, for them to clean up the nonsense in the chaos in their community, so they come out there and not worry about their children or their grandchildren getting hurt or shot or killed. I want to answer one question. Jason, how you doing, Jason? He put a very good question up here. Good evening, everyone. Happy to view this panel and be a part of the discussion. I have 2 questions. What exactly is meant by the cause for defunding the police? Can this hurt the work of good police? And 2, can the proposed CJ reforms come at the cost of safety for our community? Very good questions. Anybody want to weigh in on that before I say anything?
No, you go ahead, because you did your homework and you read it. You read what HR was.
Uh-huh.
And let me just add one more question on, because we know you're going to be talking for a while. To Jason's thing is that who had input into that HR thing? Go ahead.
For me or for Jason?
For you.
Oh, well, listen, HR, the House of Representative bill was good question, Steph. The House of Representatives bill, as well as a lot of the state legislature that's being proposed right now, is input is from community organizations and as well as some police professionals.
Okay, good.
And that's so it's not. So Jason, number one, we talked about defunding the police on our last week's episode. I would tell you to go back, look at episode 13. We talked about defunding the police and what exactly we envision defunding the police and what it should mean. But it just means reallocating money, services, and calls for service to different departments, whether they be existing already or whether they come out in the future through HR 7120 or state legislature. I believe that a lot of cities are moving in that direction to try to assist in taking police officers away from some of the calls of service that they're called to, and putting other people who are more qualified to deal with that. And it's a good thing. It's a good conversation. We're having that in healthcare as well. And so you definitely should be having it in the community. Okay. But for your question, can this hurt the work of good police? No, it can only enhance it. It can only enhance it. If you have to look at, we said last week, you cannot hold the officers responsible for the reform and not deal with the leadership. You have to change the mentality at the top. You have to make sure that the leadership that's in place is a progressive mindset that's aware of the issues, not just comes in the city and has a job and is focused on arrest, but are willing to make adjustments, sees the vision, and knows what the community needs, because that's what this whole law enforcement thing is about. Am I right, ladies and gentlemen?
Yes.
What it is.
That's what it's about. It's about serving the community. We were employed to serve you, the residents of the towns and of the cities. So you have to hold the leadership accountable, and it could be a good thing. It could be a good thing to work. I've done it as a captain of detectives in the prosecutor's office. I worked with different organizations when we came to child abuse investigation, because guess what? Police have a rough hand when it comes to child abuse investigation. We're cut and dry. We have to enforce the law, and that's what all we have to do. But bringing in the social workers and psychologists helped us in our investigation. So we didn't lock up people, falsely. We did a more better investigation and brought the real criminals to justice, so it can help. The other thing is, can the proposed criminal justice reforms that are being proposed, can it can it hurt the community? Can it take away from the safety in our communities? I don't believe so. I believe that they're on the right track, but that's why it's important for us to have these type of discussions, because a lot of people, the only problem I see is that when you introduce this type of reform and this type of conversation, there are going to be some police officers who are going to fall back. They're going to the blue flu and all those type of things, because they don't want to. They're going to be afraid. So then you might get officers who don't want to take an action, because now they're being held accountable. But also we're talking about their liability is not just 100% protected now. If you do something negligent, you could be sued civilly. So a lot of cops are going to fall back. Those type of issues, yes, you might see a different mentality, but I think we'll overcome that. I think in the beginning, yes, everybody's going to be hesitant and apprehensive, and they'll fall back. And you might see that. You might see some spikes in crime. Let's just be for real. All right. Because I'm not sure about the outcome of something and fully understand something, I'm not going to engage it. Okay. But that is something that's a good question. But overall, the main objective is to make the community safer. Not only from the criminal element, but from the police, because that seems to be a problem in the Black community. And that's what this is all about. This is what the talks to reform is about. This is what criminal justice reform is. The talks are about, to make it safe so that the police can do their job in our communities without killing innocent people. Because let's just look at it. The statistic we talked about last week was 18% of serious crime is actually brought to court and arrests are made. There's a lot of other minor crime that goes on, and we're losing a lot of lives in our communities disproportionate to the amount of lives of any other race. So people would tell you, yes, white people are being killed by the police, Asian people, Hispanic, yes, but what's the number of their population? That's the issue. That's why the cry is being made. That's why they're saying Black Lives Matter. That's why they're crying out, because it's a disproportionate number of African Americans or Black people who are being killed at the hands of the police for minor offenses. And that is because police work, the police departments have systemic racism in them. And I'm telling you, as a law enforcement officer, from what I've seen and had to fight myself. And that is the issue. That is the danger to society that the nation is crying out about, that our young people are crying about and are bringing this change about. So I hope that answered your question, Jason. Anything else you ladies and gentlemen want to add? Just jump on in.
No, you're right. It's all about safety for the community, basically. And I'm sure, like you said, you'll have some officers slowing down their production because, I'm not going to do that. I might get in trouble. I might lose my job if I react. That's, the mentality with some of them. And until it takes other officers to tell, look, we have a job to do. Or like someone saying, your supervisors get on point. This is your job. During lineup, you have to do your job. You're not here, you might as well go home. We don't need you. Mm-hmm. So that's something that, each officer has to ask himself, am I here to do a job or am I here to just play around?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, we need to dialogue and we need to reconcile.
Yes.
Yes. Straight from the door. And restore and strengthen mutual trust, on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We used to go on Chadwick and Clinton, and the guys was always out there sitting with their little crates and people calling, they doing whatever. We went out there. If we didn't stay out there long enough, we know that they were on the crates, and we would just say, yo, could y'all kind of like clear the corner? I'd tell them, clear the corner, take your furniture with you. And they were good with it. They were good. So, yeah. and they had our back. Trust me. When stuff broke out, they was right there. Oh no, you won't mess with them because they're respectful.
That's what we need to get back to. The community policing. That's what not only just community policing, but community engagement. It's a difference. Charles Upshaw brought up a question. Could we bring that up for the viewers? He said, there's a need to change the police culture. What are your thoughts about providing police supervisors and managers management training train the trainers on how to use positive discipline and punitive discipline to change improper behavior and root out officers that fail to meet professional standards. Charles, you hit it right on the head. Let me just say this. The New Jersey Urban Crime Foundation has had an opportunity to sit down with some state senators to give our opinion on some legislation that they are trying to propose for the state of New Jersey. One of the components that we are adamant about is the psychology or the psychological mindset of the police officers. I went through a course with Natal, which is an Israeli psychologist, psychiatry organization in Israel who deals with police officers and military, specifically in the areas of PTSD and stuff like that. Our police officers and first responders, EMTs, doctors, nurses, we are all exposed to PTSD. We are all resilient as officers. The problem is, how do we deal with our resiliency as officers and first responders? And unless we have what we're recommending is that officers go through some type of psychological training, which is train the trainer, operational stress management training, that they go through that every so often, so many number of years. We have one psyche valve when we come on the job. That psyche valve can't stand the test of time after 25 years of seeing what we see, stuff that we hold inside. And what we're doing, is we're sending officers out into the community who are not being evaluated. And that's dangerous. When you look at what happened to George Floyd, the look in that officer's face to us who are working law enforcement was a look like he was letting everything out.
But he's done that before. I'm pretty sure he's done that before. That's not his first time doing that.
That's not his first time.
He's done that before.
Exactly.
He was very comfortable sitting there, knee on his neck, just sitting there relaxing.
That's right.
Like he's putting on a show saying, "Who's next?"
Right. And the look to the community who was pleading with him, look, man, get your knee off his neck. He can't breathe. He's calling for his mama. We knew what George was doing, but he didn't care. And there are many officers out there who feel the same way. And the one thing I feel bad for the officers involved in that were the new officers who were in training, who had him as their training officer, because that's how it starts. So yes, Charles, you are right. You have to change the culture, and you have to make sure that these officers who are coming on the job have the right mentality. They're exposed. They go through the same. Listen, there's plenty of things that we saw as officers that we didn't agree with, but you know what? We didn't say anything. In those type of instances, they listen. There's some things that I've seen on the job that stuck with me that I had to deal with. I had to suck it up, because I dare not say anything. And now it's becoming law. And now you will see more officers calling out those things. You had a shooting in Newark. You had a young brother, I'm not going to get into the case too much, but he was chasing the car down, and he was shooting. He finally, he shot the guy and shot the passenger, but killed the driver. And you see that his partner, it was on videotape. His partner was, yo, man, slow down. Calm down. He was trying to calm. He was pumped. But the thing that's a disservice to him, and I'm not saying he's right for this, is that they were pumping him up. His leadership, the leadership was pumping him up. And because if you feel that they're pumping you up, hey, the director or the chief is pumping me up, you think you're doing a good job. You don't know. He didn't have a lot of experience on the job. An old timer like me, I'd have been like, listen, no, I'm not doing that, because the circumstance, what's going to happen. But he didn't have that type of training and experience. He didn't have someone pulling him back like they did me, saying, "No, little Arnold, just slow down, calm down a little bit. You'll get him. That's all right." It's not like, you got to catch the person today. Listen, I used to take a license plate, write it down, and go get the joker later. That's all. Why expose myself to confrontation? Right? Knowing the authority that I had and the ability that I had, it wasn't worth it to me.
So that comes from experience, and it comes from listening to other supervisors who knew what they were doing.
That's right.
That's the key too. You know, you came on, you knew the ones, or you hear, oh, he's good at this, he's good at that. Learn from them all.
That's right.
You know which ones they point out, which one the bad cops don't do this, don't do that. Learn from the ones who have experience on it and doing a good job.
That's right.
You know, that's how it's learned.
That's right. And you know what we've put on there, what we've put on our police officers is that their role is just to enforce the law. That's it. They're not to be judge, jury, and executioner. And you know, in this climate, you know, it seems to be that we've gotten away from just being enforcers of the law, and that's a problem, because when you get beyond that, you cannot protect and serve. Yeah. So so one of the things I just want to point out a few things for our viewers about this bill. This bill addresses a wide range of policies that are going to be forthcoming, and it's going to be about policing practices and law enforcement accountability. This is what HR 720 is called, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. If you want to look it up on the internet, it's a bill that is still waiting to be passed by the Senate and signed off by this president. So couple of things. It's going to include measures to increase accountability for law enforcement misconduct. That's big. To enhance transparency and data collection. To eliminate discriminatory policing practices. It also is going to facilitate federal enforcement of constitution violations, like example, excessive force complaint by state and local law enforcement. And then the bill also creates a national registry. See, this is big right here, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to create a national registry of national police misconduct. Because what happens in this registry is going to compile all the data on police, the records of police misconduct that an officer has. If an officer, what we've been finding was that in some foreign towns, not in New Jersey, but in some in some other states, in some other states, that if officers lose their job for misconduct or, you know, police brutality or excessive abuse, they can go to another department in another state and work. And because there's no record of it. And if the other department feels that, hey, listen, you know, we'll bring you on, don't worry about it. You know, they said it was, you know, excessive, blah, 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 blah. You know, they're going to bring him in. But this will prevent that from happening. And then also, this is something that is unique. Tony, this is for you. It's a youth justice and school safety proposal. For those of us who have police or resource officers in schools and whatnot, it says it's going to have a uniform standards on youth justice and school safety that include best practices for law enforcement, interaction and communication with children and youth. Because what we found is that some of our youth, we're dealing with all of the issues that they're dealing with. Some of them are mental health, and we have police responding to that. And of course, Tony, you don't know. You know it better than me. What happened?
You have, you know, looking in the schools, not gonna mention any names or whatever, but there was one 6th grader. He was 6'3", about 230 pounds, like a grown man. But he was a child, 6th grader. And he had, you know, certain issues, you know, behavioral issues. And the only way to react towards anybody was yelling and screaming. That's the way he reacted. You know, go sit in the corner pouting. But, you know, when the teachers tried to talk to him, he didn't want to hear it. Called for his mother, his father. He just reacted. But if he took that same attitude out into the street, the officer think he's a grown man. So once you see that, you're like, whoa, wait a minute. You know, so we had to tell, you know, all the officers, like, he's a 6th grader. He's not a parent or an adult. They're like, what? Look at him. I'm like, I said, you look at him, but you have to know these things, and you don't know it. They're not wearing a sign, you know, I'm a 6th grader or whatever. He's big for his age. And that's a lot of issues that they have. You know, behavioral issues, or just kids with family issues at home. They're bringing them to school. Teachers have to deal with this all day long, the teachers and the counselors.
Yes.
And that's an issue that will continue until, like, that's a whole nother subject, but
Yeah.
that's something that they deal with. But it's about safety for the kids and staff members.
That's right. That's right. Teachers rank among the most dangerous careers with police officers and healthcare workers. I found that to be amazing that teachers are in that ballpark, because when you think about it, a lot of the issues that they have to deal with, a lot of the personalities, a lot of issues at home. When I was principal for a day at Westside, the teachers told me that some of the youth in the high school, the reason why they loved coming to school was because of the issues and things they had to deal with at home, and how it was a struggle just to get from their house to the school, because they had to walk through the community with a bunch of gang members who were trying to initiate them into staying out of school and joining the gangs and doing crime and stuff like that. So it was a lot weighing on our youth. And when they got to school, they sort of like confided in the resource officers, because the resource officers, I just want to take a moment to thank God for and bless his soul, Officer Keith Holly from West Orange. He was a big help to my daughters when they were going to school there. But those type of officers, they deal with not only, locking kids up, but they were helping kids with social problems, social issues, talking to them about things. I mean, just things in general that they weren't getting at home. So, to have police officers who aren't versed in that type of capacity is a danger to the children. And we've seen how some officers, man, I don't agree with it, how they would put little juveniles, like little girls, in because they were bad, in cuffs.
Handcuffs. Come on. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I see on the social media, and it upsets me because I don't see anything funny about it. I don't see anything funny about it. I know how it was. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, listen, by the grace of God, let me say it again, by the grace of God. Now, let me take y'all to church for a minute. By the grace of God, I made it. I ain't right. I made it through my school years with a father who was a decorated police officer in the Newark Police Department. If he had known the stuff that I was doing, he would have killed me himself. But my teachers, thank God for Mr. Arthur Sally. God bless his soul. Mr. Arthur Sally used to discipline us. I was so glad to get my behind beat by Mr. Sally, because if Mr. Sally beat you, he didn't call your mother or your father. If he did call your mother and father, it's because he said, you know what, I'm done with you. I can't deal with you no more. But back then, when I went to school, your parents could come to school and beat you in front of the class, and you couldn't call diapers on them. So,
I didn't know what diapers was until I became a cop.
Man, who you telling?
Please.
My mother and father be like, you call what? Who? Oh, okay, you want to go live with them. But that's the kind of family structure I came up in. And the teachers were different. But let me tell you now, you discipline a child, now you got to fight the whole family, man. They're going to show up at the school with 4 or 5 people to beat you up. Why are you messing with my children? Why you spank my child? And so teachers are exposed to that type of danger as well. And what they're trying to do in this bill is to bring more clinicians and more psychiatrists and others in that type of field into school settings to deal, as opposed to the police department. I just felt that was a great thing. Also, what the bill deals with is the Policing Act, the Community Safety Act. We call it Safe Streets when I was coming through the academy. But these bills go back to 1968. That's how far back these bills go to. And what President Barack Obama did was he tried to maneuver and stop the militarization of police departments, which was when the United States military services, what they do is when they go to war and they have surplus, instead of destroying it, which is one thing the military is known for, getting rid of all their surplus, they start distributing to police departments. And a lot of police departments that do not have need for military apparatus.
You see them mostly on parades.
Right. You see mostly on parades,
yeah.
especially in Essex County. Now, Now, there is a benefit to having some type of heavy armored vehicles, as we saw in Jersey City, as we saw, God forbid, if we see any attacks on this soil from the threats that are out there. I understand that local PDs have to be equipped to deal with that. But when you talk about dealing with the American citizenry, you cannot do that. American citizens should not be exposed to war-type tactics during times of protest. We don't need to have 50 caliber machine guns out on the street shooting at our residents. We don't need to have a lot of the smoke bombs and tear gas and all the other stuff that's going out there. I mean, listen, we use pepper spray, we use more humane things, but those things have their place. But a lot of these departments, it's like they like kids in a candy shop. They just grab it. And what President Obama was able to do was to limit the use of it and the type of equipment that came to towns. But President Trump reversed that, as he, has done a lot of stuff that President Obama put in place. And it is not helping, but it's actually adding to the problems. All you had to do was look at the protests, and you saw the things that were going on throughout the country. And you're saying, hey, listen, that's because these guys have militarized the police departments, and this is the direction we're going in. And that's why we want to bring police reform. And this bill actually deals with that. There's a component within this bill to deal with de-escalating the military buildup or militarization of police departments throughout the nation. So it's a very important bill. And you need to make sure that you will call your senators and get this thing rolling. If you're serious about police reform and criminal justice reform, this is the things that we have to do. Okay. The other thing is the difference between police reform and criminal justice reform. See, there was a question on here about prosecutors. I think Jason had asked a question about what can prosecutors do in CJ reform. They can do what is being done. I mean, they can start looking at the type of charges that are out there and the penalties for these particular type of charges. I'm for bail reform. Certain aspects of it, I think it needs to be changed, certain aspects, because we're seeing, folks that we're trying to help are being countered by folks who go on bail, use bail reform to their advantage and come out and do things in the community. And it's a bad look. So, yes, we prosecutors can fit into the criminal justice reform. They definitely need to. But your senators and judiciary are the ones that we need to petition to bring about a bill such as even HR 7102 to make sure that we bring changes.
There has to be a change across the state. Each state is different, with their different laws. But if someone in Sussex County does a crime, that same crime should have the same amount of time or penalties as Essex County or Hudson County, not the county you're in because of the taxes you're paying. Let it be across the board.
Right.
To the same standards.
Same standards as across the state.
Mm-hmm. State across the state. How about within the same county? I mean,
true. Right. You're right.
You, simply because of the color of our skin, if we got caught in a stolen car, where we going.
Mm-hmm.
But my friends up in the suburbs, they go right home. You know what I'm saying? They would go right home.
Come get them.
They'd be like, you know what? We used to, hey, listen, one thing I used to say in all of the task force, we didn't care what color you were, what ethnicity you were. If we caught you, you going. You going right where you got caught at. And we had some folks from out of town, from the suburbs, that thought they was going home to their mama. We're like, nope, you going to the youth house. And guess what? Their mother said, at first their mothers were mad at us, but man, later they were like, that was the best thing that ever happened to them. Scared them to death. Yeah, but it's needed. It's needed. And as we said before, law-abiding officers who are dedicated and committed to protecting and serving are not afraid of change. We're not afraid of reform. We welcome it. Because what happens in reform, I found, is that it actually it brings the quality of the department up. You find, it's like, okay, when you're in a relationship, you only know your point of view. And I think one of the things we found out was that a lot of the reasons why relationships fail is because of communication. So you think you think you all that in a bag of chips, but your mate is like, there's some things you need to work on. And you saying the same thing about them, but until you communicate and talk, you're both fighting each other and at each other's throats. And then when you sit down, unfortunately, it's always at the end when you finally have no choice but to listen to the other one. Then it's like, you know what? You were right. Oh, I did do that. Then you start seeing things differently. And I think police departments across the nation have to realize that. All right. There's a certain feeling of entitlement, a certain arrogance that goes with police. One thing I know my family used to always say to me when I was working was, you bark orders. You don't talk to us. You bark orders. And I did, because why? I was a captain. So it was no negotiating with what I was
doing that. Yeah.
I gave you order. Where was it? Carried out, right? I mean, that's how it works.
Yeah.
That's the paramilitariness of the police department.
But
it doesn't work so well in family environments. It doesn't work so well in relationships. So police officers, they have the highest rate of divorce. No wonder, right? They have a lot of issues because of that mentality. And one of the things that when you were dating, they always say, "Oh, you always think like a cop." You always think, "Well, I am a cop." But what does a cop think like? They think differently. And the same thing is how we engage one another, engage the community. So that's what good police reform is about.
Also, speaking with a few, officers that I worked with in the past, every officer is not the same. Every officer can't work with specialized units.
Right.
And those that go into specialized units, a lot of them don't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were having a discussion that some officers were afraid to tell the supervisor, I don't want to be here.
Right.
Or I can't do this job. They felt, if they told them, I'm afraid to do this job or go on search warrants, they'd be looked at, or, oh, you scared, And there's nothing to be afraid about. If you can't do it, you can't do it.
Right.
And when they asked to be removed, sometimes they weren't.
That's right.
And then also had some officers that we discussed. If you've been in a specialized unit for a long time, you need to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't handle, just like somebody who's been in homicide a long time, narcotics a long time, you have to come out. Because you can't do it that long. Right. Because you get accustomed to the same thing over and over. And that one day, you might snap.
Right.
You're used to seeing this over and over again. You're having a bad day, something happens. You never know what's going to happen.
That's right.
You never know how you're going to react.
Yes.
But then you take that same reaction that you use in a specialized unit, you take it to patrol without, going back to a psychologist or someone to talk about it.
Right.
You never know. They don't have that. So They take you out of a specialized unit, throw you back into uniform, go do what you did before you got to a specialized unit. You still had that same mentality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of problems that, officers have. If they don't want to be in a specialized unit, they're forced into it, or, oh, that's a promotion, this and that. They don't want it.
Right.
So we've had, Steph, we've been on investigations with people that shouldn't have been there.
Right.
They were afraid.
Right.
And you knew it. I'll drive the van, or I'll drive the car.
Yeah.
Or it's a lot of little issues, but that's what happens.
Or they're dressed up like, I'm going to get you, sucker, Put all that gear on.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, see, that's where operational stress management comes in, because the course I took was a train-the-trainer course. And what happened in New Jersey, the Attorney General of the state of New Jersey has mandated officer resiliency training. The problem I have with that is, one, it's a 2-day course, and it was the reason why he did that because there's a high number of suicides within police work. That's number one. Number two, the setting in which it's in is the same, just like you said, Tony. It's in a classroom environment, and you've been to class, we don't even want to ask questions because we don't want to feel that we're stupid when we go to court that we take. So we look around and see like who's going to ask the question, because we don't look like Bobo the fool and answer what we consider to be a stupid question. But there is no stupid questions. If you don't know, you don't know.
Don't know.
The stigmatization of being, of not being able to perform or be able to be in that unit is great. The pressure is great. So one of the things that we did in our operational stress class with Natal was that, one, it wasn't 2 days. It was more like 7 days for the trainer. But we could not sit in a classroom environment. Our bosses and supervisors were not allowed to be there. We were not allowed to have our cell phones and text people, because in class, when you go to law enforcement classes, you got your phone, you're texting,
pull them out,
or you're not paying attention to what's being said by the instructor because your captain is calling you. Although he sent you to the course, he's sitting there and he's calling you about stupid nonsense because the chief is chewing his behind out. So you really don't get the benefit of the class. And that's what we were seeking to change. That's what was our recommendation on the state level, that it's a program available to police departments through UASI, which is the Urban Security Initiative. And the thing is that these departments, they were at the CJ, they were like rebuffing it. We had the crew, they said, listen, we'll pay for the officers, we'll do it throughout the entire state. We're extended beyond the UASI region, but they didn't want to do it. And it's very needed, because I broke down in that class. I'm gonna tell you, there were some cases that they pulled out of me, and I cried like a baby in front of folks that I didn't even know. I was like, man, I can't believe I'm up here shedding tears. But it was I didn't realize it, that I had a form of PTSD, that some of it was in it. It's all in us. But the resiliency is that I was able to work through it and deal with it. Steph, you actually, a lot of our viewers don't know, but you actually were injured in the line of duty.
Yep.
And you still perform.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I came back. I got hurt in April. I got shot in April, and I came back to work in July.
Yeah, but how did you deal with that? What made you? Did you feel compelled to come back to work because you're a cop and you're tough? And did you feel compelled? I mean, I'm quite sure the doctor was telling you stay out a little bit longer.
Oh no, that was the city doctor. He told me to come back.
Okay.
But no, I came back because when I initially filled out the application for the police department, it was handed to me when I was in church. So I felt like with me coming on a job and being able to get on the job, that was like something that God had planned for me to do. And even with a lot of the law enforcement stuff that I did do on the job, I did a whole lot of other things outside of that. Some of the same things that they want to perform with the community, with the children, with the seniors. This is a lot of stuff. We had a band, all police officers, that we used to go around and, play music and stuff like that. But that's what it did. But did it bother me as far as, yeah, I still got this bullet in my leg. And I'm telling you, the other night, and my things started burning. I said, oh, it done moved. It done went down to my foot. I said, oh, now this going to go back. Now this is when it's going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's not a good thing.
Yes.
We got issues that, even to see some of the crimes that's happened, we were traumatized, honestly.
Yep.
Traumatized to see things that happen to little kids. Just see the first time I saw somebody get shot in the head and it was stuff on the ground apart. I said, oh, somebody must have been eating and threw up eggs and stuff. He told me, you don't know gray matter when you see it. Well, you know what? Then it
victims, period.
Next
like,
I just threw up. It was just awful.
It's like a shock, victims.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so police officers, as police officers, we're exposed to that. The most heinous and cruelest crimes imaginable to man against another human being. We've seen that. We've seen it against kids. We've seen it against old people. I've had a double homicide involving old people. You know, that the guy just wanted to rob them, and you know, he killed them and raped the old woman. So I mean, we see things and we deal with it, but officer resiliency is an issue. It has to be something that we gauge police officers' ability to continue to stay on the job. So that's one of the things. So listen, we're out of time, but in closing, I want to say this to the audience. We thank you for your questions, great dialogue. We hope that we answered some questions. We hope what we intend to do is open up, you know, and be transparent about what we experience as police officers and law enforcement officials to help you better understand. So when you're out there talking and having these discussions, you know a little bit more what it's about and what it's like hearing it from us. We can give you the God's honest truth about what happened, what we've seen. So we just want you to know that that's why we're opening up these type of conversations and having this type of dialogue. So before we close out, I want to give my expert commentators the final words.
Okay, I just want to say to the audience, you know, some of the things that you guys put up is a good thing, and you know, a lot of it is kind of like touching our hearts because this is a thankless job that we did, and in spite of the fact that we're retired, our service does not end with retirement. And you know, I want to give thanks to you guys too also.
Yes.
Also like to say thank you. Just a little thing I have to say, you know, I'm proud of, this goes to everybody who's listening, proud of you for making a progress that you're not talking about. Trust your journey. Keep it up. Things will change.
Things will change. That's right. I agree. So listen, we thank you again. I'm John Arnold, Stephanie Treadwell, and Anthony Cox from Protect and Serve. We hope to see you next week. Until then, stay safe, stay informed, and watch yourself out there enjoying this weather. Be safe with COVID. Make sure, you know, Jersey's doing a great job. The governor's doing a great job by slowly opening us up. We'll have the lowest COVID amounts in the nation. So we want to stay that way. We want you to stay safe. So thank you for joining in, and we'll see you next week. All right. And remember to do the most important thing, which is to vote in the upcoming elections. Be the change that you desire. Make it happen. All right. God bless you. Have a good night. Talk to you soon.